Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is mid-July here, and if you happen to be watching this when this video is shown, then it's probably mid-July where you're at as well. But in the meantime, this is one of those things that someone can go back throughout the course of time and watch. So there's no telling what time it is when you're watching this. If you're celebrating for whatever reason on this particular day, well, happy whatever it is you're celebrating, and I hope that you're having an amazing time. I talk about a lot of different topics on this channel that vary and range from things that seem like they could be on the supernatural side. For anyone into supernatural type things, for anyone who's would say you shouldn't keep anything that's supernatural in your home, you're inviting certain things, well, here's something that talks quite a bit about the supernatural. And I'm not going to use this for divination, but I am going to randomly open this Bible. I just randomly opened it. I don't even know the page number yet because I basically have just opened it right now. And I'm going to start with the first thing that comes to my attention is this giant number 2. A lot of us are dealing with a giant number 2 in our lives. If you listen to this channel as a chosen one, you're probably dealing with a big number 2 yourself. And if you're coming to this channel as a demon, well, you might be dishing out a lot of big number 2s yourself. Now, there's a place and need for, what is the word for it when you use things in your garden? There's a place and a need for compost and organic material. That's basically what I was looking for there. There's a need for organic material. And the richer it is, the more nutrients there are that will go back into the soil. So anyway, I come to this number 2 in Joel 2 in the Bible that I'm looking at, the Holy Bible. It says, "An invasion is coming. Blow the horn in Zion and sound my alarm on my holy hill. All who live in the land should be stirred, because the day of the Lord is coming. It is near, a dark and gloomy day with very dark clouds, like something black spreading over the hills. Great and mighty people have come. There never has been anything like them, and for many generations it will never happen again. A fire burns ahead of them, and after them comes a scorching flame. Ahead of them the land is like the Garden of Eden, but behind them a barren desert. Nothing escapes them." And now we're in Joel 4. Actually, I guess it would be 2:4, Joel 2:4. "They look like horses and run like war horses. They rumble like chariots as they hop on the tops of the hills. They crackle like fire burning up the straw. They're like a great army going into battle. People are in anguish before them. All faces get pale. They run like warriors and climb walls like soldiers. Each goes straight ahead, and they don't turn from their paths. They don't push one another. Each one keeps in line. They break through weapons without a loss in their ranks. They attack a city, run on the walls, climb into houses, and come through windows like thieves. The earth quakes before them, and the sky trembles. The sun and the moon turn dark, and the stars stop shining. The Lord thunders ahead of his army. His army is very great and mighty in doing what he tells them. Yes, the day of the Lord is great and terrible, and who can stand it?" The next section would be called a call to repentance. The section I just read is called An Invasion is Coming. So I'm not going to read all of a call to repentance, but I am going to say that having opened up this Bible to that random page lends to something else I talk about on this channel frequently. It's called synchronicity. Synchronicity is one of those things where maybe I reference something that is quite telling for the time frame that we are in, or that we have foreseen coming for so long. And maybe a lot of people who are watching this channel have the spirit of truth, but for anyone who is watching the channel with the spirit of truth and has remained meek and silent in the conversations that are occurring on this channel, you've realized that there are a lot of people who have the spirit of everything other than truth. You have people who have allowed themselves to be driven by the ego. And the ego is the spirit of narcissism. The ego is the spirit of destruction. The ego will go so far as to kill, steal, and destroy with malice. And then there's the spirit of truth. Not everything that truth can do is all flowers and rainbows, or whatever, however the term is said. But one thing that is true is that the true demons, they don't shy away from hearing the word of God. They know the word of God. For other people who are on the fence, well, they're lukewarm. And if we've read enough of these books of texts, we know what happens to the lukewarm. And then there's the entity that knows what it is, and it's driving full force. And that's the kind of entity that I've shown on this channel in conversations with, for an example, my father. Not to single anyone out specifically, but only to use this grave matter as a discussion, with real occurrences, real events that have happened in some real person's life. For me, I know my channel has a subscribership that is comprised of former coworkers, people who would formerly call themselves my family, my friend, my financial advisors, just to name a bunch of random examples. But in every element, in every aspect that I've dealt with people about business, I've found that for some reason, if you pepper in an element of just personal conversation, some people don't want to go beyond the sheer money-making aspect of that business. And some people would not want to have you in their presence except for to hear that you're struggling, or to demean you, or to garner gossip to take back to the rest of the nest of energy vampires. So in this particular era, if you're brave and you can speak your truth, even if your voice is shaking, the most amazing thing is you can find that you free yourself from all of these troubles and troubled souls who would normally just leech off of you and try to take your energy. And you can do that because anytime you share something of truth, I mean, even just the very imagery that I'm showing right now and that I've shown in the past is being critiqued in ways that go beyond critiquing even my beautiful presence right here. So the funny thing is I say that, and I say it kind of as a joke because, I personally don't perceive myself as the best looking person out there. I've heard people say one way or the other that they think I appear in certain different ways, but the truth is that we can't please everybody. So I know that as a attractive as I might be to one person, I'll be unattractive to that same degree to another person. And how I see myself often has to do with, is it the ego or the spirit that's operating at the forefront of my thought process. And for me, a person who was maliciously assaulted as a toddler, there's an element of fear and also a very strong lack of confidence. And so in the past, I would just, fold. If anyone said something, I would cave to that and I would believe it. So recently, I was hired by someone to do a lot of work for them, after which point I sent the invoice. It was an emergency job. I took care of the work. And this person claimed that they were in shock that I had invoiced them for the correct amount of work that I did. Now, this person's helped me out considerably in the past. And so I went ahead and adjusted the invoice to a fraction of what really was due, with the understanding that I would be, of course, helping in the future to perform these same tasks. Anyway, in the long run, this person went ahead and paid me the revised invoice amount, which was not enough to cover the work I did, and went so far as to say they would not help me with that. And we actually were involved in another type of business where they would help me and I would pay them annually. And they will no longer help complete this business that only they can do. And they didn't want to even continue that service whether or not I paid them. So what we got was basically one person who can help someone, who did help someone, and who even discounted the work. I would do it for free if I had the money. If all of you would click on the description and contribute a little bit of monetary consideration, and if I had all the money in the world to redistribute, I feel like I'd be able to freely assist people with the specialized things that I'm able to resolve, that and also I would be compensated at a rate that would make sense. Now, for whatever reason, none of that has occurred at this point in time, and I believe that reason was so that we could continue to use our actual communication skills to try and perceive whether we were on the side of, do we want to do business with this type of person? Do we want to do business with this type of person? To me, I want to interact with anyone with whom I'm able to carry on a conversation, especially when it involves an abundance, a wealth of truth. If it doesn't have truth, if it doesn't have compassion, it's here to kill, steal, and destroy. It has no place in my life. It has it has nothing other than destructive power and capability. But I'm not the judge. I'm not the judge of how someone chooses to do. Have you ever seen the meme or heard the saying, don't judge me because I sin differently from you? We are all imperfect. We all sin. We are all chosen. We're chosen if we act like we're responsible. And to act like you're responsible when someone's looking versus when someone's not looking is the recognition of an alignment of the shadow self with the light self. To always act the same is basically the delineating fact. It's truth. To always be the same, it's true. Now these aren't elements where it's like, oh, it's true. Water is it's a liquid, but if it gets to a certain temperature, it might not be a liquid anymore. It's not truth like that. It's truth like, it's just water is. Water can be broken down into elements. According to even this book, there is a time to kill. There's a time to reap and a time to sow. There's a time to live and to create, and there's a time to destroy. All of these things are true, And the intent behind all of that has a lot to do with whether or not someone is able to hear the words that are coming out of anyone's mouth, in any language, for that matter. So on this particular day, I wanted to record something a little bit to say, you might have discontinued doing X, Y, or Z to help someone in your life who has helped you considerably. And you might catch wind of it, that it didn't hurt the person that you intended to hurt with that action. Instead, it freed them up so they no longer had to deal with the aggravation of continuing on with any reason a conversation that was not productive. And so that leaves each person time to do what they do best. For me, I've been able to live and to flourish and to recover and to regain my health. And as incrementally as it might be, these times had been challenging for me. You've already heard the situations, if you're listening to this channel actively, of all the weird things that I'd gone through. You've already experienced the insights that I've provided about even recent relatives who've had these strange problems. If you watch Denzo, one of the links that I've posted to, that I've shared in the description, I'll share it in this particular video. If you watch his video, you'll see some people are saying the same thing in a different way, going through the exact same circumstances. And they present it in a very specific way. For me, I don't see it as being very different from anything that anyone else is saying, with the one exception that I'm providing real live accounts that happen to show whatever the environment is, whatever the circumstance was. And in the videos that I've shared in the past, I'll even share what has happened with my own hierarchy. And there are hierarchies, and we know it. Many of my relatives who are watching this practice witchcraft. Witchcraft is anything where you distort the truth. If you have to lie and try to spread rumors to the rest of the family about someone who you don't want to present truth within your family, well, that's witchcraft. And the chosen ones often talk about cutting off family members. I haven't gone out of my way to cut off any family member. I'll simply tell them the truth, give them some boundaries. If they don't adhere to the boundaries, I'll go ahead and reiterate those boundaries and make sure that the boundaries are escalated. Maybe I'll include you on a group message. Maybe I'll send a letter to a loved one, a mutual loved one, so that more than one person can understand what's going on. Have any of you watched The Exorcist? You needed a young priest and an old priest. And the two priests together in the room were able to make sure that the truth was what was being reflected and that things weren't being used maliciously, although we know what the outcome was if we watched The Exorcist. The point is, there's a great cost to go out of your way to try and force something out of someone that doesn't necessarily either want to or know that they have the capacity to rebuke. Do any of you have any siblings who treat you in a hostile manner? I don't have any siblings, so I don't have to worry about that. But I did have one parent who treated me in a very hostile manner. And then later on, I had other male figures treat me in a hostile manner. Have any of you had anything like that where you try to communicate and then anything that you say is wrong? Those are the kind of things that you know can make you just as mad, can bring you down vibrationally to just the lowest level to where witchcraft could impact your life. But for the chosen ones who understand, basically the people who believe in truth, people who believe in and understand truth enough to accept responsibility. For that segment, it's next to impossible to get that person to do something that they don't believe in. Now, we can trick each other one way or another, especially in our business, into doing things that we even ourselves don't consider as sinful. Let's say we're eating our favorite snack, and let's say it's resourced in ways that are not commensurate with the values that we've supposedly come to love. In other words, let's say that snack costs 3 human lives for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe the snack comes from a cliff and people die every day harvesting that, in weird ways. And maybe the owners of that snack make all the money, but the workers don't really make the money. We're really not sometimes aware of the theft. We're not aware of the theft of our general surroundings and the health there within. We're not aware of it when we throw the wrappers of our fast food containers sometimes on the ground, on the trail systems that we actually hike. We're not really aware of those thieving actions or the murderous actions where we killed some of the wildlife inadvertently. We're not aware of it. Or are we? In many cases, we've become more and more aware that in the books of peace, there was something called fasting. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a certainty. It was something that we had to do. There was something called loving your neighbor as you loved yourself. Now, what if nobody really knows what love is anymore? How then could we treat someone else with any kind of a discernible level of love? Just the other day, I was talking with someone, and it'd been a long time since I actually heard their voice on the phone while I was on the phone with them. And as I was talking with this person, someone in their household began to yell at them about something that was on the floor. And they yelled at this person in a way where it obviously was distracting from the phone call. And it actually resulted in the phone call being terminated. So since that point in time, I haven't talked with this person again. And again, like I said, prior to that point in time, it'd been quite some time. But the point when that distraction happened was when we started talking a little bit about truth. Not just like, this is the weather. I have this certain set of terms and circumstances that we already know about. And I'm not going to try to better these circumstances. It wasn't just like passive, meaningless talk. We started to talk about things that actually came from the book of truth. At that point in time, that's when someone started to overshadow the conversation that was going on. And the disrespectful aspect about it was that the person who did that would never consent to never consent to having had done something wrong. So what if I cut off that conversation, even though I could have cleaned up the mess on aisle 4 just by myself, without interrupting someone else's conversation. All of us can see what is and what isn't. All of us can perceive. And whether we approach that and call it as judgment or using it as information to better our circumstances going forward has a lot to do with whether we're driven by the spirit or the ego. because the spirit can hear, hey, you yelled over the conversation that was going on. It was disrespectful. The ego cannot hear that. The ego can say, you're judging me. Why are you doing that? That's basically the conversation that we're trying to have on this channel. Some people like to go and continue to gamble on the chance that it's like, maybe I'll have another day. Maybe even if I put in all of the effort to become physically robust, physically able to withstand. How do you withstand something when the army climbs up the walls directly, moving across the rooftops? Are you nimble enough to compete with that? I've been watching this guy, Lee Wayland, talks about power batics, and he is pretty ninja strength in terms of what he can do. But in the passage that I read, it felt like we were reading about AI attack robots or something that was just impervious, something that would move forward in a straight line and hold the line without a single one of its elements falling. You know, I'm not saying it's AI robots or God's army. What I'm saying is there are elements that you know that you can withstand and elements that you should be a little bit more fearful of. Whether you have the fear of God, the fear of a creator, whether you have the fear of respect for one another, the fear that we won't respect one another, whether you have any kind of cognitive capabilities, has a lot to do with whether the ego is driving or whether the spirit can even occasionally take the wheel. So for all of the covens, all the warlocks that are out there, especially the warlock, thank you, warlock, the one who denied being able to further help me with the help that I need annually. Thank you very much for freeing up my time. And I'm certain that it's going to work out to the benefit of giving thanks and giving credit to the higher power, where all of this where all of the thanks is due. Yes, some of us might have contributed monetarily. It depends on how we got that money. Was it stolen money? Operated off of the backs of the patience of others or the sweat of others? It's hard to say. It's hard to say in this particular system, and that's why probably we've heard things like, forgive them for they know not what they do. You know, we've heard things like that in the good book. What we haven't possibly heard is from the generational divide that continues to do everything possible to separate distance-wise from the truth. And the truth is that the more we're in one another's proximity, the more we're going to find that somehow some people might become agitated enough to reach out and talk with us if we are chosen ones. We're all chosen, whether we're doing the reaching out or whether we're being reached out to. We've been chosen to have these circumstances so that we can have a conversation that's more meaningful. And I think that's about way more time than I anticipated this video would go on. So I'll go ahead and end it around here. Mostly I just wanted to say I watched another video today that kind of inspired me to make something that was off the cuff. I don't know how this went. We'll have to find out. Click on the thumbs up. Let me know in the description something that is meaningful and uplifting. And all of us would appreciate it. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.